wood. I can grab it from here. It's very easy to grab. That's the way I tend to do it. I'm not exactly sure the size yet. I might make it fairly large. It really depends how much clay I have. I don't know if I have enough clay. But this is a wooden board with a piece of plastic on top. You should clean it all out, but because it's water-based clay, one of the things I tend to do is spray it down. And it'll just get nice and wet, and then I can add my new clay on top. So it's quite a bit of a difference from the Bernie meme sculpture to this, but I think this will be kind of a fun sculpture to do. And postspace.com, you can get all of these models, and it's very inexpensive. You know, usually when I use a model, a live model. So if you were to hire a live model by yourself, it would be like $20 an hour. In a group, it might be like $8 to $10 for 3 hours. It really depends, but online, you can get this set for $4 or whatever, so it's definitely much more inexpensive than using a model. And you know, models these days, they're going online too, so this is a very good way of getting a pose that you can work on it, because in sculpture it takes so long to really work. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is put this way. You kind of have to determine where the head's going to be. So if I sculpt it this way, I'm actually going to start it this way. I'm going to put it on the profile like this. So that's going to be my profile. And here we need to kind of determine what the base is. So we're going to add a nice flat sheet of clay, and that's going to be our base. For this, we're going to use water-based clay. I have a fresh bag of clay, and most likely for this sculpture, we're going to use 2 bags of clay. So as you know, with water-based clay, you have to hollow out the inside, and you could build it with like some sort of like paper inside, but I tend to like build it solid. Take your wire tool and let's cut a 1-inch slab. And the reason we're going to cut the 1-inch slab is because this is going to be our base. We're going to put it on the platform. So there we go. Where we want our sculpture to rest, and I'm just going to push it down really quick. Now we're going to make another one and overlap it here. This part, one of the things that I find is that you have to make sure that this is really wet here. And what I'll do, I'll take this to score it. You know, even though this clay is wet, I will make sure that it is just absolutely as wet as possible, because what happens here is that as it dries, that joint becomes separated, and that could be a part where the clay breaks over time as it dries. So I'm going to take another 1-inch slab, and what I'm going to do is just take this really quick, just kind of do this. This kind of roughens up the surface, and then what I'll do is I'll put it down like this, and I'll push it in, and I'll try and join this by pushing in the clay quite a bit. You can see I overlapped it because I want to kind of be able to push it, these two, and I'm pushing them together because I want them to join. The thing with this is that you could always remove, but it'll be a little bit harder to add. I'll take some water. The water kind of helps almost cement it together. And I overlap it like this, and I push it down. And you have to kind of push it quite a bit. So take both your hands, push it in. That's why you make it a little bit wider, because you do lose a little bit. So now let's do the same thing for here. Just kind of rough it up and then rough this part up. And then let's cut this like that. And now let's wet this part and this part. This is a lot just to do for a base, but you're better off doing this well in the beginning than struggling and then have it crack later. So take your hands, kind of push it in, merge it onto this one. And we're still not done because we want to be able to kind of push all of this together. This is going to be quite a large sculpture. So I'm pushing it together on both sides. And now this piece that I have left over, I'm just going to add it to here. And I can take this. As you've seen in my other videos, it takes quite a bit to build a platform, but you know, it goes by pretty quickly if you use a fresh bag of clay. I'm removing quite a bit of clay. We want it to be nice and even. All right, so this is the thigh. I cut a block and I am just going to put it this way. This is going to be my connector for the hips because I just wanted support, otherwise it's just too floppy. So if you look at the back here, we're going to take another piece. That's going to be my thigh right here. I'm just going to cut it a little bit. And I'm just going to cut this. Here we go. So we're going to connect this to the lower leg. And then this is just going to rest. So this is going to be, we're just trying to build this as quickly as possible, but you can kind of see what's going on. So that is the thighs. The thighs are going to get much bigger. This is going to be a little bit different than what I'm used to like building in the beginning. Keep moving your model around. I'm just looking at the right side. So also she's angled back like this, so her thigh is coming forward. We'll just add a little bit more here. Once we add the arms, it's going to definitely help support the body. So this is just here to support. We're gonna add the arm right about here. So let's cut this and we're gonna put it right about here. That's going to be the arm. And we're going to take this. We're just going to connect the shoulder to the torso. All right, we're just going to connect this really quick. This is very thin. So if you're looking at the side here, you're starting to see what's happening. So, but we need to build up all of this clay. We also need to make sure that it overnight it dries just a little bit. But you have to make sure that all this clay you push together. So I'm just going to continue building the armature, and this is going to dry overnight, and then we're going to have a decent base to continue. And it's getting harder, which is good. So I had to shrink down the legs. I brought them back a little bit. The torso was getting a little bit too big. I can still correct that. If I wanted to have the same length, I could have just made this bigger and just stretched it out. But this saves me a little bit of clay. The other thing to note is that this arm is actually coming out quite a bit. If you look at it from the front, she has her arm, her humerus going this way. That means that it's going to be coming down like this, and it's becoming harder to move, but you can still do it. That means that this part is going to be a little bit further down, And it helps to have a very large tool so you can make very broad strokes. That way you don't get carried away with details. The reason this is here is because I need to support this, otherwise it'll just collapse overnight because it's very, very small. You know, our head's gonna get bigger, hopefully. This arm, one of the things I'm doing is I'm putting the arm just a little bit too forward like this. So I'm just gonna kind of push it out. That means that every single thing is gonna be moved. But you have to be very careful. I've been like sculpting this, and this part I've noticed I have put some air bubbles in here which could potentially break during the firing process. So keep that in mind. So this shoulder is actually kind of coming this way. So she is twisting her torso this way. So I can even move this entire arm this way. But that means that the arm and everything needs to be moved. So at this point, I'm just trying to establish the major shapes. Here's the shoulder. And I'm thinking, this is something I tend to use for things that could potentially fall. So I'm going to build the neck and the head, but I want to put it on this skewer. And then I'll just kind of wrap it around like this. And that way, the head's not going to fall off, and I can build it pretty tightly, and I can remove it afterwards. Remember, we're going to scoop the insides out as much as we can towards the end. Is a very difficult pose. So one of the things I'm struggling is with the measurement from here to here. At first, it was a little bit too long, but now I realize it should be the same size as I originally had it. There's something wrong with the shoulder, and I need to make the torso thinner. But for right now, I have this here to help support a little bit of the weight. I also have this here to support a little bit of the weight because there is so much happening here. And also keep in mind with water-based clay, the legs, the arms are going to be drying out much faster. So this is definitely not a pose for beginners, but it is a very challenging pose, but I think I'll be able to pull it off. So one of the things that I need to do for the next session is look at the sculpture and try to take a measurement, say from here to here, and compare it from here, which is the condyle of the femur, right about here, to the patella, which is the kneecap. So we're taking the measurement of the femur, comparing it to here, take a measurement, say from here to the bottom, compare it from here to here, and that way you get an accurate measurement. But right now it just looks a little bit too short. There's something definitely wrong with this shoulder girdle. The trapezius is not there. But this is essentially the gesture for today's sculpture. It's a very difficult one, but at least we are going our way. I'm probably going to exaggerate this curve as well, make it a little bit more sensual, but for right now, you're going to struggle with the clay kind of sinking down, and you're constantly going to be pushing this up. Take a measurement with your stick here and compare it to the head. The head is actually lower than here, so always kind of take a measurement across and see. And with pose space, it's very easy to find your way, but try to figure out where the bones are. The bones are definitely more important than the muscles. So this is where the hips are, and then this would be the rib cage, and then you have the shoulder girdle, and it's very difficult to kind of get it right. Also, I'm going to have to bring down the neck. The neck is going to be a little bit further down. So there's all of these things that are happening. I'm probably going to have to remove the arms as well and kind of push them forward a little bit because they look to be just a little bit further back. And then, of course, we're going to take measurements of the head. So there's quite a bit of things to do. One of the things I've noticed with this sculpture is that as I am building the clay, I'm finding air bubbles inside. That is, clay I didn't put on right with enough force. And I think it has to do with the way the position is. It's hard to kind of develop the push in the clay without affecting a lot, because it's a very sensitive sort of pose. It requires you to be very careful, otherwise it could collapse. But you need to position quite a bit of clay here just to kind of hold it up overnight. Even with this, if I was to remove the stick from the head, it would fall off because I don't have enough clay in the neck yet. This is definitely going to be a very challenging pose, and tomorrow I'll continue building it and hopefully...
messing where you shouldn't have been a messing, and now someone else is getting all your best. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. Yeah. You keep lying when you ought to be truthing, and you keep losing when you ought to not bet. You keep saying when you ought to be a-changing. Now what's right is right, but you ain't been right yet. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. You keep playing where you shouldn't be playing, and you keep thinking that you'll never get burned. Ha! I just found me a brand new box of matches, yeah. And what he knows you ain't had time to learn. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. Are you ready, Boots? Start walking. You keep saying you got something for me, something you call love, but confess, yes, you've been a messin' where you shouldn't have been a messin', and now someone else is getting all your best. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. You keep lying when you ought to be truthing, and you keep losing when you ought to not bet. You keep saying when you ought to be a-changing. Now what's right is right, and you ain't been right yet. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. You keep playing where you shouldn't be playing, and you keep thinking that you'll never get burned. I've just found me a brand new box of matches, yeah, and what he knows you ain't had time to learn. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. Come on, Boots, let's walk all over it.
Some ears to the sculpture, and I'm not really sure exactly what I was thinking, but I was going after a cyberpunk sort of look, and I was a little inspired by that game Cyberpunk 2077. I heard people shouldn't get it, but I thought it was kind of cool. And I do like the hairstyle I gave her. It seems like it's almost like a Cleopatra sort of style. And it looks better than the original hair. I don't tend to like that kind of wavy, curly hair for models, for female models. I kind of like a distinct line, and I think this sort of hair is a little bit better for it. So at this point, I removed the stalk that was holding her stomach up. And the reason I do that is because you need some sort of support in the beginning to support that massive weight that's on her rib cage and torso. Remember, we need armatures inside even us to support our weight. And you can do that using an armature. But if you're not using an armature, you're going to have to figure out a way to engineer it up while the clay firms up. At this point, the clay is still wet, it's still workable, but it's quickly drying. Because if you remember, in one of the previous things that I did was dig out the inside, and when you start to dig out the inside, it starts to get drier faster. It's still very workable, but it does get a little bit like stronger and a little bit drier, which at this point, that's exactly what I want. So using a shop towel, I basically go over the entire sculpture, and this shop towel that you can get at any auto parts store works really well. It actually works almost as similar as a burlap bag that a lot of old masters would use for clay sculptures. And it removes a lot of the detail, the unwanted unevenness of the surface. And it really works better with water-based clay. I have tried it with oil-based clay, and it doesn't work as well. So you're better off just wetting it down, but you do have to clean it very often. So there's like a lifetime expectancy for these towels. You have to keep buying them. So I am doing a few more details in the face, and the face, I am not very happy with it. I think I wanted to give her a more youthful look, and I want to add a little bit more detail, but when you work small, you need to get small tools, and I find that I don't particularly like to focus on tiny little specks, so I want to make it detailed in the face, but I also want it to be, idealized a little bit. And it's important to also have a light on your sculpture, a strong light. And you want to be able to sculpt it in the same light as the model is. And this is something that's called coloring in sculpture. You want to be able to kind of see the distinct lines of the shadow and the light. Because sculptures, if you're going to put it somewhere and it's absolutely flat, it doesn't look very good, so you have to look at it from various different lights. You gotta light it from below, from above, just to get the shadows absolutely right. Because usually in painting, you can throw back the shadows based on the color and the coolness of it. But with sculpture, I find that it's a little bit difficult if you don't know the anatomy, how far in you have to go in the body. And I do have quite a few mistakes still, but at this point, it's only a matter of subtly sculpting and not so much any major developments that are going to happen. I might put some accessories here and there. I was going to put underwear on her just for, the obvious reasons. But I kind of like it. I like the fact that it's right in your face, and it's, I always found that artists that like my page on Facebook or whatever, and they comment to be a little bit judgmental with the subjects that I sculpt. And I've sculpted before this kind of like bondage sort of style, and I kind of like it. I like the subject, but I found that people tend to be very, very angry at me, and the comments that kind of fly at me are kind of insane. And in these sculptures, I tend to get censored by YouTube and Facebook. And I've posted these sculptures before on Facebook, and I've actually had them removed, and I've gotten banned for I think for a few weeks until they I guess they let you back in. But at this point, even using the hands, it's all about subtlety. So here's something that I'm doing. I decided to put a bowl. So I am sculpting the bowl right here, and there is a shape to it. So But it was an afterthought, but I kind of like the idea that she has like a plate and it's going to be milk. So it's actually going to be a fluid. And the cool thing is that with this water-based clay, you should be able to put some water in that bowl when the sculpture is fired. So I think it's kind of like a neat sort of thing. So I might do that sort of like motif. I'm still not done with the bowl, and here I'm just kind of like trying to work on the shape. There's a lot of details for each bowl, and I think the thing that people will do is kind of create a very general bowl that I'm trying to do and create a little bit more detail on it. I'm not sure if I'm going to write something on it, but I think that this is a good start. And for right now, I want that clay piece to be a little bit harder. And because it's overly wet, to do the details, you need it to be just a little bit harder, because then you can really get in there. One of the tools I really like, I ordered these silicone brush tools, and I've been using these quite often. I like that they let you push the clay, but I got them from Amazon. They're not that good. I went to an art store, and the ones that they have at the art store that are a little bit stiffer are much better for sculpting, because you need to push that clay around. And these only work if the clay is very wet. And right now the clay is slightly hard because you can see the shape of the body. It's not falling down. She's on all fours. It's very easy to hold it up because it is a harder sculpture. And at this point, this is when you want to do some details. You don't want to wait too long. So I am kind of narrowing down the pose at the moment. I'm almost done with the sculpture. I have about maybe one more session on it, and then I'll be done, and I'll just let it dry out a bit, and then I'll take you through the firing process for the sculpture. Thanks for watching. And then layering on top. So this is, for me, this is pretty new. Normally I never take these steps very far, but I'm going to try and create something I've never done before. Some base colors that we're going to try out, and it should be like a multiple layer things. It is Liquitex acrylic. We're going to start with this tube. It's called Iridescent Rich Gold. And then we also have ultramarine blue and burnt umber, and I have some white that I'll mix with the ultramarine blue and try to create something. But I also found that this is pretty decent. It's a deco art, and you can get this at Home Depot, and it's an acrylic. It's very inexpensive. I think it was like $2, so it's actually cheaper than the sort of stuff that you get at a art store. Here, and we're just going to put it all over the sculpture. I don't like to make it too thick in order to lose details. There's a happy middle ground. You don't want to mix too much water because you want to use plenty of paint. So this is going to be our base coat. If the paint gets a little bit too thick, you can quickly dilute it with water and it'll disappear. I don't want to lose any details from the sculpture. The paint should highlight the best parts of the sculpture as well. So this is the part where I put that putty, if you guys recall. It requires a little bit more of the gold. And you can tell it's just like glitter, so it's not exactly high-end gold. But let's go ahead and keep doing this. If it's too thick, just use some water and it'll thin out. So this is the part I really want to layer thicker. It's this, and we might even have to go over it a few times, but that is fine. First coat of gold paint is on. So now I'm going to let this dry, and tomorrow I'm going to see if I missed any spots with the gold color, and then I'm going to put the next layer. This is all covered in gold, and the gold is pretty decent. You might, if there are spots that you need to take care, this is the time to do it. I'm going to just kind of clean everything out because right now it's very gold. And you kind of pick it up, you can see the original color. And you want to look around to make sure that everything is good. I am missing just a little bit on the face, and it's a little bit hard to see because the light here is not great. So this is what I'm going to use. It is burnt umber. You could get other colors like burnt sienna, raw umber, but I'm going to use this. This is acrylic, and we're going to add it on top of this so it doesn't look so gold. Now the goal is to basically put a coat over it so it hides it, but yet it still has that metallic look underneath as if it's a tarnished sculpture. So let's go ahead and get started. So as it's watery, we're just going to brush it over. And we're going to just coat this. The goal is, of course, not to make it look like it's gold. So, and you can kind of remove it, and I want the gold to shine on top of it. The first coat of the burnt umber, and we're going to keep adding it. First coat of burnt umber, I'm just going to tweak it a little bit just by pushing some things. You can take water and dilute things, so if you want the gold to come out a little bit more, use more water. But we're going to add another coat on top of this because the metallic gold paint is a little bit overpowering. I don't want it to be this, it almost looks like tarnished gold. Now let's let this dry, and then we're going to add another coat. This is dried, and you can tell there's a couple more layers. So what I did is, we started out with the gold, and then we went over it with the burnt umber. You could go over it with all sorts of colors, but you know, and I kind of liked the gold. I don't know, it was kind of cool. But you can see some of the gold coming out from the surface. But now we're going to create a patina. We're going to mix some blue and some green together and add some white, and then we're going to like just put it all over, and it's going to be a very thin coat, and it's going to look like it's got some age to it, because this point is to kind of like make it look like it's metal. So I think that's kind of, it's working, and it does give it a little bit of a difference. Remember, you could always change this if you don't want. You could always like make it a different thing. So if you don't like this, yeah, you can do something else. Green blue mixture with a lot of white, and it's very soupy. This might be horrifying, or it might look kind of cool. I don't know. So let's just go ahead and put this on here. Actually, it's a little bit too soupy. So I do have a mix here. I have like different consistencies. So in my cup here, this is the that blue-green. This is going to give you that patina, hopefully, and make it look a little bit more bronze-like. You can even like let these drips fall down, and you know, this is and I'm going to try and put it as quick as I can. This is kind of going to dry, but I want to get this everywhere, just make it really, so it's almost as if I'm getting it on the floor. The blue-green is basically the color of what the patinas are on bronzes. So if this works, I think it'll be kind of a cool effect. And I might do that for additional sort of sculpture. So I think on video this looks horrifying, and quite frankly it is kind of horrifying to do, especially when you put this kind of like the layer consistency on it. All right, let's keep going. You know, you could also make it like multicolored if you wanted. So you can dilute this with water if you don't like this kind of the thickness to it, but I don't know, I think I kind of like it. You know, this color is going to seep into areas where normally like rain would, in like outdoor bronze, kind of like the water would collect. So I think that's kind of like a neat look. Just kind of dab it in to get it everywhere. You have to. And this is going to dry a little bit more transparent. Make sure you get under the breasts here and the stomach. The front. And I'm just leaking tons of stuff, but this is how it goes. And now I'm going to try and get the face, the ears, all of this sort of stuff. Get it like really wet, and it's messy, but it's easier to get in. So get the chest. Front of the boots. It is difficult to get your brush into the thighs on the other side, but I'm just kind of dabbing it with a lot of color, and it seems to reach it. You can even use your hands to reach parts that are a little bit harder to get to. I saw this technique in a really good sculptor's videos, Joanna Mosen. I really recommend her. She does amazing work. And so this is how I learned how to do this. So this is not my own kind of like idea. I've seen it in different like different videos, but I think hers was the best. And it showed a lot of people use just different techniques. So the dabbing motion, you could use this to create a little bit more kind of like interest when it dries off. It kind of has this strange look, and I kind of like it. It looks like it's metal. You can still see the gold. You still see the umber. It's very interesting. I could do a lot of things with it. I could have left it gold, but I think that looks kind of neat. One more step that we're going to do, and that is protect it with wax. So it's going to apply a little darker, and I'm just going to put a very thin coat throughout, and you can doesn't require a lot. You're going to do this for the entire sculpture, so I'm probably just going to apply it with the brush first. Feels pretty good. If you touch the sculpture now, it's a very nice